for the teens to speak for themselves. And so I'm going to tell you that we put the call out to our group of students. Now we have a rotating, um, well, I should say a rolling admissions process for our Teen Arts Council now that we are virtual. So we have about 32 members. We meet twice a month, and these brave young souls stepped forward to agree to do this. And I think that they have a wonderful presentation to share with you.
Hi, my name is Ivy Walbert. I'm a 17-year-old artist and high school student. I'm currently homeschooled. So I've been making art basically ever since I can remember, since I was a really tiny child. I've been drawing and painting and doing all sorts of things. I remember deciding I wanted to be an artist as an adult when I was 7 or 8, and I've just stuck with that. Like at 17, I still want to go to college for art. I was really inspired by picture books when I was little. I had a ton of them. You can see some of my favorites on the screen there. And I read them over and over again. And I think the illustrations in those really inspired my art style. And being an illustrator for a children's book is still sort of a dream job of mine. I grew up just outside of Durham, surrounded by woods. We had this wooded lot connected to our property that we turned into a nature trail. And I spent a ton of my childhood running around in the woods. You can see little 5-year-old me there, tree hugger from birth. And since I was homeschooled my whole life, not only did I spend a lot of my free time outside, but it was also part of my schooling. So we would go out, me and my parents, and they would teach me how to identify different types of trees and stuff like that. And I think spending that much time in nature, noticing all of those details really shaped not just my art, but like how I see the world in general. And that's true of homeschooling too. I think it's interesting because my childhood and my schooling looked really different from other people's. And often people assume that that was sort of a negative thing in some way, but it definitely wasn't. I think it gave me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. One of those opportunities was this curriculum I did with my dad from 6th grade through 10th grade. We picked a poem every week, or he picked a poem every week, and we talked about it and we had a little discussion. And then I used that poem as a prompt to make a piece of visual art. So these are all about 3 years old, but you can see some of the pieces I did through that. And what was great about that was that it really got me to make art that I wouldn't have otherwise made. I love prompts for that reason. It really pushed me to become a better artist. So this is just some of my recent stuff that I've done, so you can get a chance to see what I do now. So house portraits is a thing that I started doing really because of the pandemic. This is kind of a crazy story, but I really love painting outdoors. And before the pandemic hit, I would go out to like the farmer's market in Raleigh or to downtown, and I would sit and set up and paint and draw and sketch like buildings and people and anything I could. But of course, then we had lockdown, so I couldn't go out. So I would sit in my backyard, and you can see the painting on the right there is of my shed. And I did probably about like 8 or 10 paintings of my backyard until I got really sick of painting my backyard. So I emailed all of my neighbors and I said, hey, would anyone let me paint your yard or your house? I got this overwhelming response. It was really awesome. And it sort of turned into this summer project of going around in my neighborhood, my little community, and painting different people's houses. And you can see the one in the middle is of one of my neighbor's houses. So it was kind of a cool project. And this is just another recent one. I do a lot of my work in a combination of pen and watercolor. So this is one of the most recent ones I've done. I've started doing a lot with just ink drawings underneath the watercolor, so you can kind of see the process there. I also do some work just in pen drawing. So these are a couple of my most recent ones, and there's a couple more on the next slide as well. And the one on the right there, that fashion plate one, was actually for something with the Teen Arts Council. We did a project in October where, sort of as an alternative to the Inktober prompts, we came up with our own prompt list, one for each day of the month. So I think this was for the second day. The prompt was Victorian. And what was really awesome about that was that it sort of gave us this platform with the Arts Council's social media. So we got to post all of our things that we made for each day and get featured and sort of get our work out there a little more, which was cool. And these are just some other illustrations that I've done recently to give you an idea of the sorts of work that I do. So yeah, that's me and a little bit about my art and what inspires me.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Ethan Harrell, and I'm 17 years old, a part of the Teen Arts Council at the NCMA. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my artistic process, which I think started when I was 12 years old, when I first watched Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. That's the Best Picture winner of 2015. And I had to watch abridged versions of the film on YouTube, bootleg versions, because it was rated R and my parents wouldn't let me watch it in full. So I went on YouTube and watched the bootleg versions and had to piece them together to make one movie by looking at the Wikipedia page as well. But that really started a passion in me in filmmaking. And I watched a lot of classic movies like Casablanca and Godfather, more modern classics like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I had that passion throughout my teen years and up to my junior year. But I didn't have the time to explore more diverse international films until the pandemic hit, which we had a lot of time after quarantine started to look at this streaming service called the Criterion Channel. And the Criterion Channel is a streaming service with a lot of independent and foreign language films. And I spent a lot of my time during quarantine watching these and binging these movie series. But one movie in particular struck me as so interesting and so profound to me that it kind of started this thought process in my head. And that film's called My Winnipeg. It's directed by Guy Madden. He's a Canadian from Winnipeg, Canada, and he calls it a documentary fantasy film, but I'd like to call it a collage film. And it really mixes in a lot of different film mediums, especially stock footage film, theater. He mixes in with this as well. He recasts his family, his old family, as other people, but includes his mother in the film. It's kind of his way of trying to get out of the town of Winnipeg and escape those experiences that he had as a child. But he does it in a very interesting way. He tells a lot of cool, really weird stories. Like this one, for example, shown is a horse race happened in the Derby, and the horses escaped the Derby during the race, and they all ran into the river. They ran into a river in Winnipeg, and the river froze over overnight, and they froze in the river, and their heads appeared above the surface of the water. So that's a very weird story, and it actually happened. And people visited it as a park, and it was an attraction in the town of Winnipeg. And he was very obsessed with the idea, and he was very bewildered by it and why people are looking at dead horse heads at a park. And that's just really weird and obscure to me. And I became very interested in these stories and the way he told them with all the mixed mediums inside it. But I really consider this a collage film because of the way he tells the story. And I I really I really started to be interested in collage like things, especially in my music choices. And this artist is Robert Pollard. He's a musician from the band Guided by Voices. It's a lo-fi indie rock band from the 90s. And he does a lot of collage work outside of his music, but in his music, his albums are about 30 songs long, and each song's about a minute long. So 30 1 minute songs on each album. It's a very loaded album. There's a lot of different songs, but it creates this experience like no other album because it's a collage album, really. There's so many different ideas on the album, and they're given to you in such a short amount of time that it starts to form into this tapestry of a piece. And I started to think and self reflect why I'm gravitating towards these collage like works. And I started to understand that that's just my thought process. I'm a collage thinker. That's my way of life is collage through albums like this and through the film like My Winnipeg. I started to apply this to what my future career may be, and I was thinking about journalism. And I came obsessed with the New Yorker magazine. It's a culture magazine out of New York City, and they include a lot of different stories from a different variety of genres, like correspondent, reporter at large, fiction. Of course, they have crossword and cartoons. And I was really interested in how they mixed all those together in one magazine. And really, just if you go on their webpage, the first thing you see is all these different stories and genres mixed into just one space. And that again gravitated and lit a spark in my head. That's just my thought process is these different stories, these different mediums all mixed in one place, that collage like aspect of life. And I was starting to think, where did this form? Where did my thought process like this form? And that was the art museum. I've spent a lot of my time in life at the art museum since I was a toddler. I've been visiting the art museum with my mom. My mom is works in the education department at the art museum, so I've had a lot of time going through the galleries here in Raleigh. And I think that the aspect of each piece being in its own space, but they're all together at the same time. And you can go to a tomb, an Egyptian tomb, And then 5 feet later is a Renaissance painting, a 20-foot large scale Renaissance painting. I like the aspect of these different pieces and these different worlds all combining into this one space. And that really attracted to my collage like thinking because there's, again, so many different mediums, so many different personalities in this one space. And I started to use that into my daily life. As a yearbook editor at my high school, Corn Holders, we had to change things up and diverge from what the traditional coverage was in the yearbook, which was one sport gets a whole DPS or 2-page spread. And we had to do this thing called umbrella coverage, where we included a lot of different stories and a lot of different personalities from our school onto a DPS. A DPS is 2-page spread. So that was my thought process beforehand, to include a lot of different stories in this one space. And now we've decided to use it in the yearbook. And I had a big decision in making that happen. So it's awesome to see how this thought process is being implemented into my daily life. I can't wait to pursue a career field that also uses that, rather that be a journalist or videographer, a filmmaker. For right now, I want to go to UNC Chapel Hill. I've applied there. I'm waiting for my decision, and I hope to go to there to study journalism and live through that thought process of collage thinking. There's a lot of different things you can um, understand about the world through collage thinking.
Okay, hey everyone, good morning. My name is Hada Kamal and I'm a junior in high school, so I'm 16 years old. And with the time I have right now, I wanted to focus on explaining why I enjoy making art rather than showing you all my art itself. And so this is also what got me into the Teen Arts Council. So I got into art, I want to say 2 to 3 years ago, and I experimented with it a lot, and I realized I could never use art as like a way to de-stress or like a method of like expressing myself. Like I know a lot of artists do that, but I could just never figure out how to do it effectively. And so the reason I'm into art is because I believe like the process of making art is equally as important as the outcome. So that's what I've always focused on when making my art. And so I made this presentation over like, the course of this week. And as I was trying to figure out what to present to you all, I realized I apply this concept of, the process is just as important as the outcome to a lot of my life. So I mentioned in my bio that I play basketball at school, and I realized I've always enjoyed like the process it takes to get to the game, like the practices and the workouts, a lot more than the actual game. My school also had a record of like 3 to 21 seasons, so that's why, I don't enjoy the games as much. But, it just goes to show how without the process, you wouldn't achieve your end goals most of the time. I feel like, in my opinion, it makes you appreciate your work even more. I wanted to give some background on this, mess of an image right here. So I mentioned how, I enjoy the process of what goes into art and, how it's created. So about a year ago, I was able to put it into action. And so this was pre-COVID. There was like this idea that was pitched to my MOS, and we were to like create a couple of murals to put around our playground fence. And so we wanted to represent the community in a way through the murals. And we decided there's really no better way to represent the community than kind of letting them get in on the action. And so this piece you see right here, it's, I believe, 10 by 5. It was like a canvas. And we kind of just invited everybody to come in and add their own piece. So I was the one kind of handing out paints, telling everybody where to paint. And then I helped finish it up. And then so after we, filled up the canvas and added words. Okay, so, there's a big difference between the two, but I feel like it turned out pretty well. But the reason I wanted to share this with you all was because we had like kids, adults, like elders, like people of all ages coming in over the weekend. So this happened over the weekend. And, they all came in and participated in creating this. We also had like some NC State students come in, some people from a church up the street, I believe, also come in and help. So the reason like I thought this was important was because it kind of goes to show how much goes into the process of making an art piece. And you had all these people from all their different communities coming in to make it. And so I wanted to end off my presentation with these 2 local murals that are on the next slide that were done pretty recently, actually, that I really like, resonate with. So this first one is a Black Lives Matter mural done last year during COVID, so 2020. And I really like this one because it's just another example of how, the community is coming together for something bigger than themselves. And, even though we were in a pandemic then and we are still now, people still found a way to, get the message out in a safe manner. And I believe this is located in Uptown Charlotte. So my last slide is another mural. Okay, so this is probably like my favorite mural like in all like locally. So it's called Love Graham and it's located in Graham, North Carolina. And I really like this one because it just reminded me of my experience I was telling you all with my mosque mural, but on a more professional level. And so what the artist behind this mural did is they had people come in from the community and kind of, if you see those little hearts under the mural, they had people come in and draw those little hearts you see. And then like professional artists came in and kind of jazzed it up, made it look nice. The reason I like it is because, you know, the story behind it is a lot more than, you know, what you first see.
How have you all been handling boredom during the pandemic?
Okay, I'll go ahead and go first. Well, I haven't really been handling it good. Like I know a lot of people, like I just kind of went through like a bunch of different hobbies. Like I went from like baking to playing tennis, but art is like kind of the one I really stuck with. I had like a lot more time to do that because of quarantine.
Like I said in my presentation, I did that whole project of the house portraits, but I've also definitely been rotating through different hobbies. I've recently gotten into embroidery. I'm in this like embroidery sewing group with some friends. I've been writing letters back and forth to my friends, which I had not done before, but we've started this whole chain of like actual through the mail, you know, wax seal, fancy writing letters. So that's been really fun. Just lots of like fun little creative things like that.
I don't think I've necessarily been really bored throughout the pandemic because I can entertain myself pretty easily through movies and stuff like that. But it's just that I have that ability to entertain myself at home with that kind of stuff. It's kind of distracting and it leads to a severe lack of motivation sometimes. Or maybe I'm just a senior and it's senioritis, but for me, it just sometimes brings a lack of motivation into what I'm doing.
So your generation's been much more involved in social activism than your predecessors. Have you seen your peers use their creativity to make change in the world?
Well, in my town of Clayton, we had Black Lives Matter protests throughout that town, and a lot of students from my high school do a lot of art that pertains to the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think that's really cool how people are able to use activism through art at our age and that we can have that voice. Also, seeing a lot of cool stuff from the Teen Arts Council and being able to see people from other parts of the state do that. I think it's very important for people to be a part of a group like that so they can see different perspectives of the state making art and talking about things that are wrong with our country.
Yeah, I'll just make a little pitch for the Teen Arts Council in that respect, that it's been a great group for discussion and for like a safe space to have these conversations with other creative teens.
Well, I think the biggest, like, I don't have a specific example, but like I know a lot of my friends, like, I mean, I've seen it on Instagram. Like, a lot of people are just using their stories to kind of get the word out, and you know, like issues that are going on in the world, they, you know, use Instagram to kind of promote that and you know raise awareness. But that's the biggest thing for me.
I've definitely seen that on Instagram as well.
I'm curious hearing you all say that. Do you think that makes for effective messaging for social causes?
I think it definitely gets the word out very quickly. Like I've definitely seen posts go around really fast with information about that sort of thing. So I think if you're looking to like reach a lot of people, it's a really good way to do it.
Okay, I agree, but I also think like there's a difference between raising awareness and then like also acting on it. Like you can post something, but if you don't like, you know, take the steps to, you know, try and fix it, I feel like, you know, I don't know how to, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
That's interesting. Do you think there are things that we could do to improve people's ability to do that?
Okay, so you all, well, I don't know if you all asked it yet, but there's a question about, you know, like what can Gen X and millennials do to kind of help spread awareness also? And like my answer to that would be because they're, you know, because you all are older than us, I feel like kind of, I guess like help starting like, you know, like actually like taking action, like, you know, starting movements and stuff like that. Because like, I mean, like, I feel like people usually take like older people more seriously. I mean, that's just, you know, like in my personal experience, like I've seen that. So I feel like if they can, you know, kind of get the word out and then people my age can, you know, kind of help bring awareness to it.
I am curious. I think I had asked you all this when we first started talking about the talk, like how often are you engaging with social media, and do you find that it is like helping you, or do you find that you have kind of a hard time moving away from it? Like how much is it part of your day to day?
I'm definitely on social media more than I want to be, more than I probably should be. It sucks you in, and you want to see everything your friends post, and you want to see everything that's going on. And I've been trying really hard to like distance myself from the phone recently, but it's hard.
I think, in discussing things, Huda, you had an interesting um, moment where you were discovering great artists through Instagram and things. And has that been something during the pandemic that's broadened for you? Have you found some new areas of creative growth through social media?
Yeah, like I've had a lot of free time, obviously, because of the pandemic, and I've had like a lot of opportunities to, find out about different artists, about different volunteering opportunities. Also, like I've gotten really into volunteering because of the pandemic. So I feel like that's a way, like that's a like one of the only benefits of this quarantine. But like we had a guest speaker on the Teen Arts Council, and I know Vishali was saying that he came to like this last Creative Mornings talk, Clarence Hayward, I think, and I really liked his art, like the way I know, like he said, if I'm not mistaken, like he started not like pretty recently, but he wasn't an artist all his life, so I really that's something like I really found interesting because I just got into art. Like I haven't been into art all my life. So
Do you have thoughts about things that we could be doing differently, in whether it's for art or for like journalism that you talked about, that would help change for better and give us like a fresh approach than what you're seeing out there right now?
Well, I think that social media is designed to make you look at it more and more. And unfortunately, I think that's where people get a lot of their news from, especially if you're uh, Gen Z like me and everyone else, the other teens on the board. So I think that trying to steer away from social media to get your news, because there is a lot of um, images and posts without context that people look at, and it spreads a lot of fake news and fake ideas on the internet, a lot of rumors that destroys people's lives.
I would definitely agree with that. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how much it's designed to just show you things that you'll already agree with, or that are already, that are very blown out of proportion. So it's definitely something to be careful about.
That's awesome that you all have that perception. Where did you get that understanding or perception of social media from?
I think I went to UNC for a camp for journalism, and they really showed me a lot of different ways of how media can be fake and how to responsibly be a good journalist on social media. So I think with that type of education, I think it really showed me the ways to avoid fake news and things like that.
How do you seek new communities online?
Well, I I had there's this website called Rate Your Music, and it's a very hipster place to be. It's a very hipster place to be, and that's where I first learned about Guided by Voices and Robert Pollard, and that's where I got, as you know, some like collage like thinking influence from. So places like that, as long as you're staying away from the toxic people on there that gatekeep certain things, like you're not allowed to listen to this band or you're not allowed to do this, making sure that you do what you want to do and you have your own individual personality going into it. You're not just liking things because other people like them. That's something that I've had to deal with and have tried to stay away from on online communities.
Listening to you, like, do you get annoyed when people say teenagers only think about themselves? Like, you obviously think outside of yourself. Like, how do you react to that kind of mindset of maybe older people?
You can be honest. It's okay. Nobody on this call will be offended.
I mean, I know that's not true because I work with teens and I think you're amazing, but I want you to be able to say that.
um okay, honestly, like I mean I've heard it a lot of times. Like my parents have said it before. Like, like, oh, why are you always on, why are you always on your phone? Why are you always using your screen? Things like that. I was telling you all about my volunteering opportunities. There's been a lot of teens that have like organized like book drives, food drives, and like passed out food for like, because I know during COVID, like it's been really hard with unemployment rates. So I like a lot of people have I passed out foods to families that need it. So I feel like, that's the way like, teens think more they're not just about themselves. So I mean, I feel like the work shows for itself.
There was a question about quick news or short news. It's funny because the question is, it's funny because it was a desire. It's by Joel. It's funny because it was a desire for short, quick news that pushed us into the BuzzFeed news cycle maybe we see moving away from this in the next generation. I actually see us moving more towards it, and I don't think it's very good for our generation, because the more that social media companies make money off of people that use that site and get that kind of post in their feed, I think the more they're going to grow and the more it's going to bubble up. And hopefully one day it just pops and it just stops and it crashes and everyone doesn't do that anymore, which for the time might bring some harm to other people because they won't be getting the same awareness or same. But I think in the long run, not having that fake news type of short media cycle is a good improvement on our society.
I was just going to say, there's a question, as a mentee, what are the qualities of a good mentor? I was thinking about this the other day. I know, at least for art teachers or just teachers in general, I really want someone who will like push me forward a lot. I want someone who will say, okay, this is good, but like, how can we make it better? So I think that's the biggest thing for me with that question, is just like that push forward.
Oh, well, I just wanted to add on to the same question. Like during COVID, because like all of my teachers are online, everybody's online in my school. So I've kind of seen what's worked for me best. And it's been, I know it's been hard for like teachers too. My mom's a teacher. So I know, it's difficult on all of us, but I've realized like I need somebody who's willing to kind of build a relationship with the student. Because I mean, like thankfully, like me online, I'm a homebody. Like I love staying at home. I'd be fine if we were, at home for the rest of the year. But I know like a lot of students have struggled with, like being online. Their grades have dropped just because of, like teachers. I mean, it's not, I'm not speaking for all teachers, but a lot of teachers are not willing to put in the work and, like talk to students, see how they're doing. But I know like a lot of schools have done like mental health days. My school hasn't done one, but a lot of schools have done that to kind of take ease off yourself and kind of give you a break. But
I think it's really great how teachers and schools are combating the whole pandemic and doing everything online, and the way they've managed to move things. Like obviously I'm homeschooled, so my like core school hasn't changed, but like my theater teachers have been doing amazing things with Zoom, and it's really inspiring.